Hey, this is Chris Plush for CG Masters, and in this quick tip tutorial I'm going to show you how to use a noise modifier on your animation curves to create a bit of a flashing light effect like you'd see from a lightning bolt, and like the ones I used here in my Thor's Hammer trailer. So here I've got a simple scene set up with the hammer and a plane for the floor, and I have a point light up there as well. Now the first thing we'll do is go over to the render buttons and make sure we set the frame rate to whatever we want to render at. I'm going to be rendering at 30 frames a second. And now let me press Shift and Z over the 3D view just to see what it looks like so far. So I have the lamp selected, so I'm going to go over to the lamp buttons. This is what the scene looks like when it's lit up to a strength of 5,000. And so this is basically what the peak lighting will look like when the lightning flash happens. But we're going to start things off at 0 so the scene is completely dark. So I'm going to change the strength down to 0. I'll press numpad 0 to go back into camera view. So now the scene's just being lit by these glowing Trinity knots. Now let's say I want the first lightning strike to happen at about 20 frames in. So let me go down to the timeline and I'll change the current frame up to 20. And over the strength value of the light here, I'm going to press the I key, which is going to insert a keyframe and save that strength information at frame 20 for me. And let's press the right arrow twice to go up to frame 22. This is where it's going to be at full strength. So let's go over to the strength value and we'll increase that to, let's go with 2000. And again, we'll hover over the strength value and press the I key to save that information to this frame. Now we want the lightning flash to last for about 25 frames. So let's move ahead to frame, what would that be? 47. And we'll turn the strength value down to 0. And again, we'll hover over it and press the I key. So now let's go back to frame 1, and I'll press Alt and A over the 3D view to play the animation. And there's our lightning flash. And let me press escape to stop the animation. But you can see the lightning flash kind of gradually declined a little bit too perfectly. We need that to flicker a little bit. So that's where the noise modifier comes into play for the animation curve. So let me click on that line there. I'll drag that over. And let's switch this right side window in this menu over to the graph editor. This is where we can play with the actual animation curves. So let me press the home key and that will just center everything into view. So here's the animation curve for our point light strength value. So now over in the graph editor, let's press the N key for the right side toolbar. Now there's a few tabs over here, so let's click on Modifiers, then click on Add Modifier and add in a Noise Modifier. Now we don't see anything quite yet because we need to increase the strength. Let me click on that border there and drag it to the left so I can see these value names. So let's click on the strength value and we'll increase that to 7500. You can see it made a big difference now. However, that's too erratic. And it also, as you can see, encompasses the entire timeline. So our light will actually be flickering throughout the whole animation. So let's restrict the frame range by clicking on that icon there. And our peak started at frame 22. So let's type in 22 for the start frame. And it all ends at frame 47. There we go, that's better. Now you can see the random effect is far too frequent. So we're going to need to stretch this out. And we can do that by increasing the scale up to 3. And that looks far better. But these curves are also a little bit too smooth now. I still think that's going to create too much of a gradual look. So what we're going to do is increase the depth from 0 to 10. And that's just going to add some more detail to the noise added to the curve. And that looks pretty good to me. Now you can play with the phase amount here, which is basically just the random seed effect. And it will just randomize the calculations for these curves. But I like it as is. So let me show you what it looks like so far. I'll left click there to place the cursor on the timeline, and I'll press the right arrow and just go through this slowly. So there it lights up and it gets dark for a frame. And then we have a couple more flickers until it finally just shuts off. All right, perfect. All right, so that takes care of the randomization of lighting strength. But now what we have to do is, let me go into top view. I want to randomize the location of the actual light source, because that's sort of how a lightning bolt works as well. When lightning is lighting up the environment, it's not exactly coming from one stable solitary source. It's kind of being lit by maybe a few different lightning bolts or different parts of the lightning bolt and stuff like that. So I just want the shadow to kind of have an irregular casting instead of just a perfect shadow cast. So this is pretty easy. What we'll do is, with the light selected, press the I key and insert a location keyframe. Doesn't matter what frame it's on. We're going to add some randomization throughout the entire timeline. All right, let me click on this arrow for the point light and then that arrow for the shader tree. And here's our strength value we just animated. Let me hide that by clicking on the eye icon. And then I'll drop down the location values here. And we have an X, Y, and Z location curve. So let's click on the X location first. And then I'll add a modifier for that. So click on Add Modifier and add a Noise Modifier. Now you can see a little bit of waviness, and that's good. We don't want too much movement here, so let's see what it looks like. I'll press Alt and A over the 3D view, and right now it's jittering pretty crazily. So what we'll do is we'll increase the scale to 5. And then let's try it again. Let's press Alt and A over here, and that's a lot better. Actually a good amount of movement too, I think. Let's decrease the strength down to 0.7, and we'll increase the scale up to 6. All right, that looks better. And now we need to copy this modifier to our Y and Z location curves. So let's click on this button right here to copy the modifier. Now click on Y location and click on the button next to that to paste the modifier in. And now this is going to have the same exact curve that we had on the X location, so let's just randomize that by playing with the phase amount. Now let's go over to the 3D view and press Alt and A to play the animation. Now you can see it's moving along 2 different axes. And let's do the same thing for the Z location. Let's click on that, click on Paste, and then again randomize the phase. Alright, so there's our lighting source, which is going to create some flickering shadows. And let's enable the eye icon for the strength value curve as well. And then I'll press the 0 key on the numpad for camera view. Press Shift and Z to get a rendered view going. And I'll press Alt and A and let's see how things look. Well, let me go back to frame 1. So I'll change the current frame to 1. Press Alt and A. And there we go. It's kind of hard to see the shadow flickering because everything's so noisy in the preview. So I'm just going to give this a quick render. Alright, let's take a look at the animation. And there we go. The light strength might be flickering just a little bit too much, but we could change that by just changing the scale or the phase number. But whatever, that's good enough. Now from here what I would do is just create a second light source and have that flash maybe 100 frames later. So we have we have separate light sources for the lightning flashes, and that's that. If you want to see how I made the hammer, the modeling tutorials for that are already available on YouTube. If you want to check out the entire course, which includes texturing, rendering, and compositing, check out the link in the description.